debt, and the problem is that like consumers are drowning in debt, businesses drowning in debt, the government is drowning in debt, and our bank is saying we're gonna make it harder to pay back debt. Like that doesn't really have good consequence. You know, like there's bad things that come from that, and they think that it's good. So that was pretty much all I had to do was just like, hey, be expecting that because they expecting to raise them in March, and so they they talk about raising them in certain increments. Usually they raise them in 25% increments. So four raises equals 1%. Um, Now they're talking about out of necessity, kind of raising it either 1% outright or 2% outright, which would kind of scare like a stock market. The stock market, there would be something bad happening if they were to make a significant move like that. Go ahead.
I was about to say that's not even. I wouldn't even say that's like unusual in recent times.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's unusual. The 20 like moving more than 25.
Yeah, well, they haven't raised interest rates more than 25% since 2000.
Like 08 or 2000.
Yeah, 2000.
Oh shit.
They dropped rates that much. They got rates up to like 5 or 6% in 2008 and cut them down to zero.
Okay.
Didn't raise them again until December 2015. Didn't raise them again until December 2016 after that. But actually raising the rate up anything significant, it'll be 22 years since we've seen that. So that's scary. Imagine how many people have invested in a stock used to not having to, or a business, they're now having to pay so much of their money towards a debt because debt interest rates might be at zero. You borrowed $100 million, you don't got to pay zero on it. Now you might got to pay 10% on it. It's like, wait, I've spent 22 years paying zero. Now you're making me pay 10% outright, up right now? And then imagine like so many businesses and people kind of adopting that mindset like that. It could all come crumbling. Now I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm willing to bet that will not happen. But enough of that will happen. Like punching a person once, it'll probably hurt. May or may not kill them if you hit them in the right spot. But enough of those will kill somebody. And
it raises the potential.
yeah, we're at that moment where like enough of these types of moves will kill our economy. And they kind of have announced like, hey, the first punch is coming. And we gotta just take it. I think that's crazy. Like, and a lot of people don't really understand it. It's not as simple as saying it in a quick 3 sentences and explaining it. Like, if enough people really understood this, I feel like we would be protesting the whole country.
Yeah.
Like, we would be in an uproar.
And for me, it's also the shit surrounding the country right now too, like with Russia and everything else. Like that make us even more vulnerable.
Scary.
Like it's a lot going on at once. Right
Facts.
Now. Like it's So hopefully we can sustain. Like America always make it through. We still here. You know?
That's true. We
can
this
sustain.
far.
Like that is the story we proving. Like we still here. So
Right.
it's not like we ever like down and out for the count.
Facts.
But it can get ugly for sure.
So what is the potential of it? Like, what is the worst case scenario?
The absolute worst case in that one move in March, or like enough of that.
Enough of that.
Enough of that. Do you want to answer that?
No, go ahead.
So enough of
He
that.
about to give you the worst doomsday take ever.
Because it is that.
I know, go ahead.
He knows. Like,
Go ahead.
it's unlikely. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion America will have its day of reckoning. Will that day of reckoning be as bad as other countries that have a day of reckoning? Probably not. Like a Venezuela. Venezuela is going through hyperinflation. So basically, the higher their prices rise, the more valueless the money is. So at some point, you could literally be worth billions and be probably the brokest person in the country.
Like a country like that got like $1 million bills type shit.
Yeah, like Zimbabwe, South Africa. They literally have $1 million bill with their ruler's face on it, and it's worth zero.
Yeah.
They're just trying to keep up with the pace of inflation. Like we have inflation. Our inflation right now is 7.5%. So last year things were 7.5% cheaper than they are now. The average toothpaste tube is $2.50 today. It was probably $2 last year. So it's moderate, and that's still our highest inflation that we've had in our lifetimes, all three of our lifetimes. But like that's manageable. Venezuela's going through like 1,000% inflation every day. So something that was $1,000 today is $2,000 tomorrow, $3,000 the next day, and it might be $10,000 a day after that. It might be $1 million. We are headed for a reality like that. Will it be as bad as like a Venezuela, Argentina, Greece? Those are the countries that we kind of already look at them as like a little bit poorer countries, whereas we look at us as like a super rich country. So of course they gonna be a little more worse off. We are absolutely heading for that style of problem. It's like, and it's unavoidable. Like, best case scenario, we have one of those. There is no scenario where we like avoid that. Our worst case scenario damn near is the best case scenario because we spent so long kind of doing what's wrong. You need to raise interest rates. That's kind of the catch-22. The Fed isn't purposely obliterating the economy. They need to do it. But doing it kills the economy. And if you don't do it, you will kill the economy. Like, there's a catch-22. That's why the best case scenario is damn near the same as the worst case. We will probably want none in our lifetime, you would hope so, but we will have a day where the average American is poor. That is factually, it's not an opinion, it's not a conspiracy. If you learned what has happened, read about, if you ever get time, read about democratic backsliding. It'll break down why democracy kind of disintegrates internally, and you'll kind of understand it's like meant to happen. Like, structurally, when we elect the presidents and we elect senators, like, it gets that deep. The fact that we're doing those things allows loopholes to where they make certain costly decisions, and if you like see it in a mind map, like on paper, you'll be like, wow, it's literally meant to happen. And it's kind of fucked up. Like, man.
Yeah, I'm not quite as pessimistic as him. You feel me? Like, I see the.
When you're done, no, say what you gotta say, but when you're done, can I ask you why?
Yeah, I'm gonna say probably.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'll probably answer your question. Like, that can't happen. Like, I'm not like that can't happen. I'm not like that, but I'm less pessimistic in that I think, like, the Federal Reserve itself is not. I don't feel like the Federal Reserve is inherently evil, and I'm not necessarily saying that he thinks that.
I think that.
I'm gonna say it comes off like that. I don't think that they are inherently. I know that he does. I don't believe that the Federal Reserve is inherently.
That's so funny.
I know he does. I wasn't gonna be the one to put it on.
That's funny to hear you say that.
They are not. You feel me? I think they have. I'm not gonna say our best interest at heart, but they got. If nothing else, they have their own best interest at heart. Like, it just got passed today that members of the Fed can't invest in personal stocks and shit like that. But so they have personal interests in the economy doing well. So I don't think that they are like trying to like destroy us. You feel me? Like, in the course of their actions, can we or will we be hurt? Have we been hurt at times? Yes. But I don't think that they're like making it a point like we're going to destroy the average American for ourselves or whatever we think their driving factor for that would be. So I think that in the event that we're heading towards that, somewhere along the line, we are heading towards that, but somewhere along the line, I just feel like we have enough brains and just the wherewithal to divert such a disaster in some way. I don't know exactly what. It's gonna be unconventional. Like, this is like, it's not something that you could just look up in the history book and see. It's gonna be unconventional. But I just don't see that. I don't see those people letting the economy like crumble to a point where we're now Venezuela.
I agree with everything he said.
And one more thing, we have things in place that prevent that kind of like us being the reserve currency. That how do I want to say it?
It's like leverage.
It's like leverage. Yeah, it's like leverage. It keeps us from really being and we have things going on with China that's kind of like unwounding us being the reserve currency. Right. But for the time being, we are still that.
Right.
So it's harder for us to be Venezuela. Is all.
So I do have a question for you. So you said like this is inevitable, like no matter what we do. Mm-hmm. Is that from like historical like?
It's from world history and American history as well.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go back to that, but I'll also answer him. Mm-hmm. Again, I do think the Federal Reserve is corrupt. Let me tell you why. How was the Federal Reserve created? Go back to 1907. Just Google this. Assume everything I say is a lie and research it. In 1907, all the rich people in America, all the big banks, J.P. Morgan, all them, they purposely caused the financial crisis in 1907. Google it. It's called the Panic of 1907. It lasted until 1910. Mm-hmm. Why was this panic created? It was created because for the past like 30 to 40 years, the government had been trying to convince Americans that we needed a central bank. The central bankers are the Federal Reserve. If you read your money, it says a Federal Reserve note. It's technically not a dollar bill. It's a Federal Reserve note.
Right.
Two different things, technically speaking. And we kept going on without them. It was like, no, we don't need a central bank. It's going to ruin our economy, blah, blah, blah. The rich people of the world purposely caused this crisis. Google Nelson Aldrich. Nelson Aldrich was a senator. He was a Republican senator. A senator, actually in our government. Probably one of the most corrupt senators we've ever had. He was married to a banker's daughter. His kids were like JP Morgan's best friends. Like, he was so heavily locked in. He spearheaded a campaign called the National Monetary Committee. Google that. If you Google the initials, it'll pop up. They were authorized to basically convince Americans that we needed a central bank. How did they go about convincing them? By causing a financial crisis, by making you get fired, making you be broke, making you lose everything that you own, for them to go, see, we can't fix these problems in the economy ourselves. We need a big bank to fix these problems so that, now mind you, they caused you to lose your job. They're saying this just is life. It's the economy, and we need a big power to fix the economy. So the creation of the Federal Reserve was secret. The second to last slave ship that ever sailed in America was at a place called Jekyll Island. Jekyll Island is a plantation, former plantation. It's also a hotel for rich people. They secretly travel. It's like 12 of them. A bunch of rich people, even Germans. They all traveled to this secret location and basically mapped out the global financial system secretly. We can get into whether it worked or not, but the fact that it was secret shows that there's ulterior motive there. Everything that they designed was for them. It was not for the citizen. It was for the bank. Every decision that gets made is meant to protect them and their wealth, not us. That's one aspect of why I feel like they're inherently evil or corrupt, because at its core, at its inception, it was not for us. In 1902, 1907, like your great-great-great-grandmother would have been alive or something like that. Imagine all of our like great relatives being like, fuck that. We don't want that. We are running from it. Our founding fathers were against democracy. The fact that we have a democracy today is crazy. You will not find any founding father in support of a democracy. Why? Why did they tell us that that was what they wanted, though, right? Same thing with banks. They told us that we wanted something that we did not want. We didn't ask for a central bank, but they forced it upon us. Whatever, I'll leave that there. Going back to kind of, do they have our best interest at heart day-to-day basis? Yes, but no. The reason that I say but no is the equivalent of like giving somebody a leash, putting a dog on a leash, 6 foot leash. That dog could travel 6 feet, but at any given moment, you have the power to snap that dog back and pull him back, right? Until he loses progress. It's like he makes 2 feet of progress, and you pull him back at the snap of a finger, and he's now back at square one. That quite literally is our economy. If you think about why are black people so poor, why are white people so rich? We could break that down and look at, black people live in poor neighborhoods and then they got nothing but drugs and gang. In a grand scheme of things, it's the Federal Reserve's fault. It literally can be traced exclusively back to them, why there are so many rich people and so many poor people that live in the same country at the same time.
What would be the leash? Would the interest rates be the leash?
Yes. And so to going back to the leash scenario, the Great Depression, obviously, our 3 biggest hiccups ever: the Great Depression, the 2008 crisis, and statistically coronavirus. It's kind of different because it was a pandemic, but in terms of damage and the effect, it technically is the worst stock market crisis we've ever had. What caused those crises? The Federal Reserve, exclusively. Not people, not business. The Federal Reserve created a video game, gave everybody the video game for them to play, and at the end of the video game, the game kills you. Are you going to be mad at yourself for playing the game, or are you going to be mad at the nigga that gave you the game without telling you, at the end of this game, you're going to die, right? So to make that make sense, they allow us to do a lot of dickhead shit. There needs to be some accountability on Americans' part for doing the dickhead shit, which is why I agree with him. They do have our best interest at heart because they aren't the exclusive reason for dickhead shit happening. It is on us. 2008 was 50% banks, 50% us. the bank loaned you a loan that you couldn't afford, your stupid ass applied for it though.
You
work.
did stupid shit.
Yeah, you make $8 an hour and apply for a $200,000 loan, $300,000 loan. My dumb ass gave it to you, but you are now homeless and I took your house. So even though I did dickhead shit, I won. I took your house. I did the dickhead shit with you, but you lost. You homeless, broke, no job, no money. You finna kill yourself. Go back and look at 2008. Look at how many people killed themselves compared to 2007. It's actually sad. Like, people lost their job. They lost everything though. So the Fed, they allowed us to do dickhead shit by telling us to do it. They gave out credit cards in the 20s. Nobody needed to buy anything. Remember, refrigerators and fucking TVs and shit, none of that was like regular. That was luxury. Not only is it now regular, but you didn't even need to pay for this shit. You might know one person in your whole neighborhood that got a TV. Now all the poor people in your neighborhood have a nice TV, a fat looking TV, a nice refrigerator, a nice radio. Radios had just been invented. They got radios that didn't have to pay for none of it.
Did nothing happen. Your neighbor ain't get no raise.
Yep. Now remember, rates are at 0%.
Yeah.
So you are getting in debt at 0%. I bought a TV for $10,000. I bought a house for $15,000. I bought a car for whatever. You $50,000 in debt and you got it all for free, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the Great Depression really took off in like September or October of 1929. But research, what I eventually went to go do, in January of 1929, rates were at 0%. What did the Federal Reserve do? Raise rates, raise rates, raise rates, raise rates, raise rates. Google it. I kid you not. As many times as I'm saying it, they did it. Rates are at 0. You are paying 0%. Like you in $50,000 debt. You is 0%. January, raise rates, raise rates, raise rates, raise rates, raise rates, raise rates. By September and October, you literally are paying 12%, 15% on something you were just paying 0% on. So when you think about how fast they were raising rates, there's supposed to be a stock market crash when you raise. It's called a bubble popping. If you've ever heard it, come out like they popped the bubble. The bubble is exorbitant growing market that shouldn't exist, full of bullshit money and trades that shouldn't happen because the Fed let them happen. Now they're raising rates. Now everybody that's in debt has to pay a lot of money on the debt that the Fed told them and allowed them to accumulate. Right. That rapid rising of rates is always going to cause an economic crisis. That's proven in the point that at the end of the 90s, we had all of Asia was going through a really bad stock market crisis. Russia was fucked up. It was so bad, we got fucked up. It didn't have nothing to do with us. And it got so bad, so global, it popped up into us. What did the late 90s accumulate into? The dot-com bubble crashing, which was 2000. People thought the world was going to end in 2000 just because it was the year 2000. But also there was a stock market crash. From the late 90s, there was a big decision. I ain't going to bore you. There was a very, very, very big financial decision in 1999 that made banks get even more encouraged to do even more dickhead shit with even more money. What did the Fed do to respond to that? From 98 to 2000, raise rates, raise rates. So to put that in perspective, for the whole 20s, they didn't raise rates at all. The rates have been at 0 from 1920 to 1929. Shit get bad in January 29, raise. You went 10 years not doing anything. Same thing with the 90s. You go 10 years not doing anything. You're not raising rates at all. You're lowering rates. You're making it even easier for people to get in debt. But then when you feel like they've gotten in too much debt, now in 6 months, you're going to raise. But you went 10 years. I'm accumulating debt for 10 years. Ain't nobody said nothing to me. Somebody randomly come knocking on my door saying I need to pay back 5 times the principal.
Right.
Now what are you going to do? Now you have to sell your car. You have to sell whatever you can because you can't pay that debt, right? Now imagine if you were a business who has to pay back debt. Now you have to fire people. It's not just let me sell my car. I have to sell my people. Like, and to make an analogy, like I gotta sell my assets. Now you are downsizing your company. You're getting rid of research. You gotta close a whole location. Remember when we going to Tucson, that DoubleTree we stayed at, when we realized that Toys R Us had closed one day, we were like, whoa. Yeah. Remember like a couple years ago, like, Toys R Us? Yeah. This was no pandemic. This was like in 2018. Yeah. That shit just closed. We were like, whoa, that's crazy. That's such a household name, just gone.
Man, right.
So when you think about why, now them probably a little more detailed than the Fed, but the point is the Fed has the power to put you in a very uncomfortable position at any point.
Right.
And they have the power to do that to businesses. So in a financial crisis, that's when the damage really gets done. But what's causing that crisis? Them. They're not accidentally raising rates. They're purposely going, we haven't raised rates in 10 years. We're going to raise them 5 times in 5 months. Well, how can you do anything thinking that makes sense. Like, look, that's so obvious. Let's like me shooting you in the face, but thinking that there was a good, you genuinely convinced I had good intent behind that. How? I shot you in the face. There is no way you're convinced that I have your best interest at heart. That's like the Fed raising rates so many times. Like, you can't possibly have my best interest at heart when you do things like that. It's so bad because of what it does. If I go 10 years ago,
first to your point first,
and those are accurate times. I'm not speaking in hyperbole.
To this point, first, I want to say that if you do look up like the amount of personal debt in America right now, it is larger than
it's at an all-time high,
multiple times larger than it's ever been. So in the event that they do raise rates to an astronomical degree, you feel me? It would be like the worst. It has the potential to be the worst downturn that it's ever been.
All-time high debt on a consumer level, on a business level,
all
and
levels,
government.
yeah.
The most in the world history. I don't mean most I mean we are the most indebted nation in global history.
Yep.
So do you think they're raising interest rates? Because the thing that's coming to my mind is like in sports, if you have like a microfracture in your leg or something, you have two options. You can either wait for it to heal, or the doctor can just break your shit, and that will speed up the healing process. Is that the same thing that they're doing?
Yes.
With the economy?
Okay. It's not, but it should be. The breaking of the leg should happen. The problem with that, as it pertains to what's really going on, that would mean killing the economy tomorrow. It should happen. That, how we just talked about our best and worst case scenario. Our best case scenario is that whatever is inevitable happens sooner than later.